Teo, let me come back to you here on this. You've talked about now the adoption from the downside. So what do you think that also from the upper side is much needed?
Okay, so
because from the lower side, people are interested in which project on blockchain can I invest in to make some money. Is it something that also from the up here they need to look into?
Yes, definitely. Like you see most of the major developed countries on earth, right? They have invested heavily, invested their own money and their own citizens' money, or even using sovereign funds money to invest in cryptocurrencies. Like a major move globally that just happened was that BlackRock, which is one of the largest investment companies on earth, have started to come into Bitcoin, started creating Bitcoin ETFs and so on. They were successful. I don't want to talk about how the regulators were corrupt in that sense to allow them to be successful when many other companies tried to apply in the early days. So that's that.
And politics.
Yes, and they know my stance towards them anyway. So we are still friends, but but let's take a look at them. There's a top-down approach because no matter what, right? If you want things to happen in society, right? The people have to want something, and the government must also want to do something to support the people, right? And that's the only way for a current mature society to work. Now, it's for the benefit of the governments to come in and use blockchain because no matter what, right? Centralized database are often extreme easy points of attack.
Okay.
Yes, and that point of attack will be the reasons why certain governments on earth are often blackmailed. They have to pay hackers millions of dollars each time, and it's also the fact that because it's centralized, there are many ways to edit the information within these databases.
Okay.
And that is bad. The reason why we believe in blockchain is because of its immutable nature, if it's done correctly. So which means that when a data is already recorded on the blockchain itself. On chain, right? Once it's on chain, we don't talk about all the off-chain structures and so on. But once it's on chain, then the data for the past few sets are already considered immutable. Maybe not the newest block of data, but the past few sets of data has already been approved, pre-checked again and again multiple times by multiple parties.
Through validators.
Through validators. So, and that's the important thing about blockchain. And then if we have public data, we have data about us, our medical stuff, we don't want anybody to be able to edit.
And by the way, on that very note, that's why I was interacting with one of my uncles. He's a farmer. He told me, you see, my son, I have a square mile. I rear a lot of goats. I have a lot of agricultural products from my farm, but I can't export them. Every time when I take them, they will ask me, okay, what's the history of this animal? Who was the mother of this animal? Where is the data? Where can we validate all this information?
Yeah, because it's not online. And of course, one of my companies right now that's doing food security in the Philippines.
Okay.
We are now working with farmers across the entire nation of Philippines itself, and we are working on livestock and such. And then all these data, like what you say, the problems of the livestock not being validated, right, are all stored on the blockchain. It's on public ledger, so people can access it. Even us individual retail people can access it. The public can access it. It's not just government officials and so on. So you know whether or not the data is sound or is not sound.
Okay. On the issues of security and data privacy, do you think that it's the data privacy laws, do you think that it's one of the barriers why people are still very conservative when it comes to putting this data on chain? Because every time when you say that public ledgers,
yes,
they're going to know my stance.
Yeah, they're going to know my secrets, right? They're going to know my inner secrets, but that's not the case.
It's not the case, really, because with cryptography, the information that needs to be private is kept as private as it needs to be.
Oh, so it's encrypted?
Yes, it's encrypted. So
but on blockchain? Yeah,
it's like the wallets are alphanumerical, and I share my wallet with you. That means you're the only one that can identify my wallet. Others cannot.
Okay.
It's like us having a language that if probably when I do this, it means I have accepted your proposal.
Signals.
Yes. If I do this, it means I've not accepted. That is an encryption that other people might not understand. So it's the same thing with blockchain. Yes. And with the blockchain, that language is known by the miners or by the people that verify and validate these transactions. This is how it is. When you look at this,
get worried.
We shouldn't get worried. On the other hand, this centralization of data has proven subject to repeated breach in many ways because again, as I explained, humans will always be compromised with the right amount of pressure.
I remember one time when we had a blockchain conference here, where we hosted the president in Uganda. So when it was his time to speak, he said, blockchain, these are open ledgers. And he made a statement in Uganda, yes. So it's what it means. It's high time we open the books. So to some government officials,
they will freak out.
You want us to open books? You want to know how much money has been allocated to this. So I think from the other way around, some people now become, this thing we shouldn't embrace it. Let's try to protect it. We protect our secrets.
Yes.
So according to what you've explained, it means people are able to...
Yeah, the things that are supposed to be kept private can be kept private on a blockchain.
But also sovereignty in Africa as a nation, I mean as a continent. There's a lot of... every country has its own mechanisms.
Correct.
Of how to run things.
Yes.
Every administration. So do you think that if they embrace blockchain, won't these things be exposed to the rest of the world?
Maybe I would like to give a couple ideas. Let's take a look at Africa as a continent.
Yeah.
It's not me saying anything bad about Africa, but the truth is that Africa and each individual African countries, right, are often affected by what other countries say or want to do to Africa. Right? Like, of course, in history we have like colonization. We have colonization. We have the Americans coming in. We also have other countries coming in to influence different countries and so on in Africa. But the important thing is this: in order for a country to start becoming sovereign, the country needs to be in a position of power.
Yes.
Now, where does power come from in a country? From its GDP.
The
gross
GDP,
domestic product, whatever it can produce for itself and other countries itself. That's one, because that's where you can negotiate. Number two, in the strength of its currency.
You're saying the first one is the GDP?
Yes, because why? The GDP in general, I mean, I don't agree on the word GDP, but I'm just using it as a general economic term.
Yes.
But it can, in general, represent the sort of goods and services that the country can produce within and for outside people, for other people in other countries. Now, if we can produce for other countries, we have a certain negotiating power, correct?
Yes.
If we cannot produce for anyone, what power or what negotiation?
There's no exchange.
There's no exchange, so there's nothing to negotiate.
I have to give you my coffee, you give me...
I give you some money, for example. Right?
Or you give me another in exchange.
Yes, another goods or service in exchange. So Africa can export, and therefore Africa should be in a position to negotiate. Now, next, currencies. Now, in order to be able to negotiate better, currencies need to be strong. Right? Because if the currency is strong, I'm in a stronger negotiating power. Like if we take a look at Russia's money right now, like even though it's in a war, right, the Russian ruble itself is now an extremely strong currency. Because why? In order to buy oil from Russia, What did Russia say?
We need rubles.
You need to buy using rubles. If you don't buy
Not
using
dollars.
rubles, not dollars, not the euro. If you use euro, I don't want to sell you the ruble.
Yes.
So Russia first had the oil to negotiate, and then it then had the currency to say that, hey, I want you to buy
Use
only
my
my currency. So now we have two strong points of negotiation. And then the last one is this, armed forces. Because why? In order for you to have something, let's say for example, we are only truly sovereign when we are able to protect ourselves. Right? If we don't have the ability to protect our family, our house, our land, those things are actually not sovereign to us. They don't give us sovereignty. So if somebody can come over and take my house away from me just like that, how is that my house to begin with?
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's not my house, right? So that level of sovereignty individually is important. But then if we drag it further into a country, into each individual African country and into the African continent, that sovereignty is important. If people can come in and take from Africa, how is Africa? So in order for Africa to protect its sovereignty, it needs to have armed might, the ability to protect itself. It needs to have soldiers, it needs to have intelligence units and air force and so on. So that is how you protect yourself. And then with these 3 points, this is where sovereignty comes back into the nation of Africa.
So how do you advise them on the CBDCs? What I've seen, the little time I've known you, you've advised a lot of
I've advised companies, I've advised countries and so
countries
on.
to come up with.
Correct. And
Yes,
I've also
CBDCs.
advised regulators and such. Now, this is my own personal opinion.
I'll come to regulations.
Yes.
Start with yes.
But I would say that CBDCs are my own personal, I will have my own personal opinion. I don't represent anyone and so on. This is individual again. So you know I'm going to say something that people don't like. Okay? So
It is.
it's mine, okay?
Please.
So now, when God gave me the idea of a sovereign coin,
Yes.
many people have not heard about the sovereign coin. So an idea of a sovereign coin is that it brings sovereignty back to the country. So when a sovereign coin exists, it allows the country to trade with other countries, even though they are being sanctioned by the same countries that want to trade with it. Now that's a sovereign coin. Now, however, the devil likes to take an idea of God,
Oh yeah.
mutates it, and use it to enslave. So instead of giving sovereignty to the people, the mutated form of a sovereign coin is called the central bank digital currency. So what does the central bank digital currency do? It enslaves and controls the people. I'm gonna give an example of what it can do.
Okay.
If you don't use the central bank digital currency as what certain countries say, they don't allow you to buy food, to work. They can say that if you don't do certain things, you cannot earn a certain amount of money. Because the money is programmable.
Oh yes.
Which means I can program the money.
So someone can. It's like.
I can just take it
credit.
away from you. Yes, it's like credit.
There's a movie I watched. I think it was about time something, and they're loading people.
Oh yeah, the time, right? Yes.
Yeah.
That's a cool
They
movie.
credit for you. Are we going to that kind of system?
Well, in the United States, we have this thing called Fed now, FED now, right? It is the US version of a central bank digital currency. We have other countries that have created central bank digital currencies. And mind you, most of them have taken inputs from God, where it started off from being sovereign coins.
Okay.
So now they morph it into kind of another monster.
Now, how best are you advising them? Because we've seen, to be honest, if we run with that setup, a lot of African governments are going to be controlled or in mess. Because time is going to come when, let's say, the West or the Europe, they say that if you don't do this, if you don't give us this, or if you don't reveal this, we are cutting down your airtime.
Correct.
We are cutting out your credit.
But that's the interesting thing about Africa. Africa doesn't know how much God has blessed Africa. Africa has all three things for
Please,
sovereignty.
Listen carefully. Someone out of Africa is telling us about Africa.
And the African nations, the African leaders are rising up and they start to understand, including the rich in Africa, they are starting to understand.
Okay.
So Africa already has all three things for sovereignty. It just needs some help, some guide to tweak a bit.
Okay.
And Africa will get full sovereignty. For example, I'm going to say this. Do you know that there are countries in Africa that generate goods and services for France?
Yes.
What?
Do you know that there are countries in Africa that generates goods and services for France?
Yes.
For Britain, right?
For, especially Congo for France.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if these countries together stop producing for France, do you know what happens to the entire economy of France? I can tell you right now, in 2 months, the entire economy of France will shut down to close to nothing. So does Africa have power and economic might?
Okay.
Yes, it does.
It does, because how big and how rich is a country like France? And yet, the lifeblood of France is actually not in France.
It's in Africa.
It's in Africa. And I'm just
we don't want to. Yes, we don't want to go into details, but I get your point.
Yes.
Wow.
So is Africa in a
So
state?
it's a source of raw materials to
Yes.
the rest of the world.
Not just raw materials. There are many things here. What
Okay.
about food? What about production of food? There's so much farming land in Africa that can produce food for the entire world altogether.
Okay.
While the rest of the world are facing food shortage right now.
Yeah. So how do we twist this? Please, you are touching our toes. You're making us.
So those I would have to remain private and secret because that will be within me and the different parliaments in Africa. I can't reveal it in public because it's going to be government plans.
Okay.
Yes.
You've talked about. There are three things. You talked about one of them is raw materials. We are supporting different economies. And the second one?
So, okay, one of it is the GDP, right? So
GDP?
it includes raw materials, goods and services,
Oh, yes.
manpower and so on. Then the second one, currency. Now, all the currencies in Africa are being eroded in all sorts of different ways. Whether or not, like internally.
Why do we need these so many currencies in Africa?
In fact, Africa should have just one trade currency. And with one trade currency, the entire continent of Africa will prosper. I have plans for the currency for Africa.
Imagine rands in South Africa. You have to exchange them with, let's say you want Uganda shillings.
Yes.
Sometimes to move rands from South Africa, you have to buy dollars.
Yes. And then you already face FX 2-3 times.
Yeah, dollars. Then when you reach in Uganda here, you want to cash your dollars into Uganda shillings.
Yes.
So 3 times your money is losing value.
Correct. And at that same time, the economy of that country would have started falling also. So while you are exchanging, even the original value that you had already dropped even before the FX exchange.
Okay.
So what's the point of having the exchange in the currency? And then of course other people say, but what about Bitcoin? You know, the value of it keeps going up and down. But
It's volatile.
Yeah, it's volatile. But they don't understand their own currencies are volatile too. And that's the reason why the same plate of food that you eat today might be worth a different price next week.
Yes.
That is the volatility of your currency. They just don't tell you it's volatile.
Wow. Festo,
Yes, please.
as we are winding up, I believe Teo, we're going to have him regularly to always share knowledge. We look forward to feed from your cup of knowledge, because that's how we're going to enlighten many people, many governments in Africa. I know a lot of other people may have that ego, but at least there are people who are well intentioned in Africa. They look further to further the agenda, the African agenda. What Nelson Mandela, I think you know him.
Yes, I do, definitely.
People like Kwame Nkrumah started. And we look forward also to have those kind of Pan-Africanists who are going to springboard the economies, and then we have a better continent. As we are summarizing, Festo.
Yes, please.
What do you think that needs to be done? I see Mitroplus Labs is doing an amazing work to bring people like Teo on board. And, you know, I know in the world where we are, the Web3 economies, we work on collaborations. Where do you see these kind of collaborations pulling Africa?
Well, myself, I think we are going to begin with education.
Okay.
Because before you sell an idea to someone, they should know about it. You should educate them about it.
No, yeah.
Yes, and with this fourth industrial revolution is going to be powered by blockchain and the movement of value from one place to another. So we are also going, as Mitroplus Labs, we're going to forge several partnerships that are going to help us teach people about blockchain and software development in our field, financial markets in blockchain, teach about the digital economies, the digital world, metaverse, and several things that are going to move economies. Today, I saw a tweet from the CEO of Twitter, that lady, that new appointed lady, and Twitter is going to become X.
They have even changed their logo.
Yes. So this X is going to have its whole entire ecosystem. It's
like
going to become. It's going to become like its own, like its own bank. It's going to become one of the biggest payment systems in the world, and not only payment systems, but also people are going to still be able to associate amongst each other in Web3, which brings in the 3D aspects and the living digitally in this particular space and everything. And they have all the ingredients to pull off this. They have the community, they have deep pockets, and also they have the tech. So I think we just need to guide.
So Africa. Education is one of the key drivers.
Yes.
That will propel Africans also to bring up to speed.
Yes. This is why as Mitroplus we are putting up translations for these technologies and then awareness for this technology.
I must commend you on that.
Yes, awareness for this technology. We are putting up blockchain literacy centers for the same technology. So and gorilla hubs to finance to incubate African projects within this same technology. Gorilla hunt, publicity, regulatory aid, all these things we are doing, so that we can be able to guide the trajectory of this tech into African lives and also align them with African values and also human values. Okay.
Teo, we're going to have you for many minutes. I hope you accept our...
Yeah, it'll be my honor.
Before we close, you talked about regulations. It's an area where many African governments are very skeptical. They're like, is this thing taking out of our power? Taking us out of power? That is one. Number two, where is the security? And number three, they've seen what Nigeria has gone through with their CBDC. What's your thought process over those highlighters? Okay, so when it comes to regulations, one thing, I personally am not a proponent of regulations. I believe that many regulations kind of stifle growth. I kind of like more chaos into order, which means that, experimentation first, and then after that, people figure out what are the best ways to move things forward, to become more efficient. So they should always be open for... Yes, because why? It's always about... Be open for chaos, please. Be open for chaos. And why? Because you see, right, we only know the best ways to do things
after we have failed multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know
Thomas
the best
Edison.
way to do it. There is no way for us to know the ideal way to do it until we keep on trying different ways, and then we find that certain ways fit for certain ecosystems
So you think
and certain countries.
we need to be like Thomas Edison? We try out many times to invent the bulb, and then at the end of the day, we shall find a way.
Well, I would use more Tesla, Nikolai Tesla than Thomas Edison, because Thomas is more a businessman than an inventor. He kind of steals people's ideas, but he's very good at marketing. So when I say regulations, right? I'm not saying that don't have regulations, but regulations are there to protect the people and the company, not there to stop people from creating new companies, not there so that people need to spend money to get licenses, not there so that people's new companies can be taxed and so on. It's there to protect the people, so that when scams happen, or like for people to know what framework to work in, so that they don't accidentally make mistakes that past people have made.
Oh yes.
Because many companies were not scams. They were just startups that failed. Yes, right. They didn't have enough money. They didn't know how to run a crypto company. They were not supported by the industry, by the community, because they don't know how to get the community in. And running a crypto company is extremely tough. It's like trying to run a public company. When I say public, it means a company that has shares on Nasdaq and so on. While you are a startup, how many founders knows how to run a public company at all? And most of them have not even run companies. So all these are just parts and parcel of why I believe that regulations should be more structured to help to say that, okay, these things we should not do because they have already been tried and they failed. And any company should not be involved in doing these things.
So you don't kill the innovations.
Correct.
You don't even judge those who have failed.
Yes, but of course, there will be people that truly did come out to scam people. Let's be honest, right?
We really know them.
Yes, I'm sure we know many of them, and many of them are afraid whenever I go on stage in an expo or in an exhibition and so on. Why? Because when I go on stage and I see a scammer, I actually call them out directly. Yeah.
Actually, what you're saying is very true. I remember one time I bought this particular token.
Yes.
Somewhere, but according to how the plan was, genuinely, the company was doing their best to come up with the best product.
But they failed. Right?
They failed, and there's no way I can start exonerating them. That, look, I want my return on investment.
Yeah, because they failed already. The company went bankrupt. The founders didn't do well. It's not their fault. In a sense, it's not as if they purposely want to scam you of your money, right?
Yes.
So that's the problem with trying to see whether something is a scam or it's not a scam. The intention, the motive.
The motive, yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Wow. Maybe in your last remarks, what's your advice today?
Okay.
Africa as a whole. I don't want to ask you Uganda, but Africa as a whole, being that you were a person who has traveled across the world, you have been in this thing, you are the gods. You are the gods. You've been there since 2009. You've seen how the evolution, I mean the blockchain itself is evolving from one stage to another. You've supported a lot of on-chain transactions and also different blockchain companies.
Yes.
So what's your advice, and what routes do you think that Africa must take at a decision-making level and also at the people themselves?
Okay, I guess at the decision-making level, right, I have said quite a lot within this video, and it's for them, whoever you are, whether or not you're a public servant,
Please
whether or not you're
them.
the president of certain countries, you're a minister and so on, look through the video and you will see what I have always believed in. You can even type out my name, Dunstan Teo, Google me and look at the videos and look at the things I've written and so on. Just check me out on Google. But to the people, right, you need to understand that nobody is going to protect your sovereignty. Not your family, not your neighbors, not the banks, not the businesses, not the governments, not the royal families and so on. None of them are going to protect your sovereignty. So it's up to you yourself to protect your own sovereignty. And one way to protect your own sovereignty is to increase your ability to make transactions. And what do I mean by that?
The ability to increase?
Your ability to increase your ability to make transactions.
Okay.
So there are people like us right now that goes into different countries and go across different borders, and we can transact any amount, buy anything that we want in the country, and our transactions cannot be stopped. And the reason why we are able to do that is because we are in some of the major cryptocurrencies that are truly decentralized, like Bitcoin. So we own some Bitcoin, and therefore we are able to transact, and nobody can stop us. So in order for you to increase your ability to transact, you need to have a currency that gives you back your sovereignty, regardless of whether or not it's Bitcoin or whether or not it will be the next African trade coin that will happen soon, and so on.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Festo, please, your last remarks on everything.
Well, it's right now is the time for us to prepare for the future, and there's no one else that is going to prepare this future for us except us. And many of us are waiting for regulations, but I think that's a wrong move. We always have to, like my brother here said, the best way to know how to do things is to first try out and pass through this chaos.
In the African setting, when you find your kid trying to tamper with a radio, you know radio?
Yes.
You flog that kid, never to tamper with it. We don't encourage them that please open that TV set, find out what is there. Why is it not working? So Festo is telling us that your kids, you don't flog them.
Of course, you do it responsibly.
Give them the radio, right?
You do it responsibly and carefully. Yes, because most of these regulations they're going to come after, because most of the African countries usually benchmark from the West.
Oh yes.
Yes, so I think we need to start also encroaching on the knowledge that has been put there on the internet for us to also build our own solutions and also position ourselves to the next things. Because honestly, what we are learning here for the 15 years we are in school, most of these things have 80% of them have been useless. Yes, and only probably 20% has been useful to many of us. And I know many of you guys that are listening are going
That's
to
another discussion probably we may have next time, whether we need to keep up with the current education system, or we need to find another shortcut.
Yes. So that's it from me.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for those who have really tuned in to watch this episode of discussion. I've just hosted two gentlemen. One is all the way from Singapore to Africa. It's called Teo, Dunstan, and also Ivaibi Festo, aka Semi Festo. We are here trying to demystify the future solutions, the solutions of Africa, because African solutions should be originally start from Africa, having a single currency, protecting the sovereignty through streamlining our GDPs, putting together all our solutions, our food industry on blockchain, so that we can have a lot of information that can enable buyers, consumers outside, in and out of Africa. So there is a lot. Please go and subscribe all our channels, our social platforms, get all this information, and I can't wait to see you changing life from one stage to another. As Teo told us that the only way how you're gonna get out of that comfort zone is applying information, protecting your sovereignty, increasing the capacity of transactions, because people like him They're all over Africa. They're moving across the world, finding people who can provide solutions. And how prepared are you? God bless you.